Hello my friends and welcome back to another episode of Flutter Explained. Today I want to talk about the Flutter Version Manager. I want to explain you exactly what it is and how you can use it in your day-to-day work. At the end, I want to show you also some best practices that you can use so that you are even more efficient with it. So make sure you stick till the end. Now please give me a like in advance and subscribe this channel if you are new here, and let's get started. The Flutter Version Manager is a CLI tool that helps us to keep the Flutter version for each project individually. Let us begin with a basic example. Here on Flutter Explained, we have multiple live streams with each its own Flutter project. In every project, we use a different Flutter channel. For example, we work on the website, there we will use Flutter Master. Or we work on our recipe app, there we work with the channel Stable. So we have always to download and prepare our streams by downloading and getting the right version of Flutter. This is a really tedious task and costs a lot of time that we could invest better into coding. How can we solve this problem? It would be great that we have for each project an own Flutter version downloaded and even cached, maybe, that we don't have to install it all the time, and we just use a pointer to point to the right version of Flutter. And here comes Flutter Version Manager, or FVM, into play. As I mentioned, FVM or Flutter Version Manager is a CLI tool, and this CLI tool allows us in our terminal to execute different commands. For each project, we can now define a specific Flutter version and can install different Flutter versions. Additionally, they get cached, so we don't have to go through the full install progress all the time. Thanks to the light link inside of the project, it is possible to configure our IDEs in a way that they automatically understand which Flutter version they should use. But now let's start with the tutorial and install FVM on our machine. So how can we use the FVM? First, we have to make sure that Flutter or Dart is installed. So I will just execute Flutter and see that we get all the Flutter commands. Now that we know this, we can execute pub global activate FVM. This will get all the dependencies and installs FVM on your machine. And because it is globally, from now on we can execute FVM as a console command. As you can see, we call FVM and we could get all these commands, like for example Flutter, install, list, release, and so on and so forth. Now we want to install our first Flutter version with FVM. For that we call FVM install and ask for the stable version of Flutter. As you can see, we clone now the version stable and install all dependencies already. This could take a while, so I will fast forward that. Now that we have installed the stable of Flutter, I will do the same for another version. To see all the releases that we have in Flutter, we can call FVM releases. And here we get the list with all the different versions that you can download. Of course, you could also download a fixed version, but for me, I want to install today the master channel. This can take again a while, so we will see us in a second. Fantastic, now also master is installed. To see all versions of Flutter that you have installed, you can execute FVM list. Now you see that we have two versions installed and you get the versions path, which is in my case users, my username, FVM versions. And then you see we have stable and master installed. But now what does it bring to us if we have both versions installed? Let's head over to the development folder of mine and create a new Flutter project. Flutter create FVM tutorial. Cool. Now let's switch into the project, which I called FVM tutorial, and let's search for LSA. LSA is a Mac and Linux command which will show you all hidden folders. In Windows this is slightly different. You will find a link down in the video description how you can make it visible. If we execute now FVM use stable, you see now we get the message the project now uses the Flutter stable. If we now make once more LSA, we will find this nice little folder here, .fvm, which is hidden. If we jump into it, we can see inside here we will find two other things. The first thing is an config.json of the FVM, which contains the current version that Flutter is used. And the other part is a light link to the Flutter version that lives somewhere else. Specifically, it lives there where FVM list shows us. And because we now use stable, you can see also that little tick behind. Now, in the next step, we want to initialize and set up Android Studio and Visual Studio Code in a way that it will use the FVM version. So if we execute FVM use master here in that project, we switch now our master channel, and we want to set up our IDEs in a way that it automatically understands which version it should take. I will do that in Android Studio and Visual Studio Code, and you will see in the timestamps where I do that. So jump to your favorite IDE and let's solve this problem together. Welcome to my Android Studio IDE. As you can see, there is that folder that I told you, that .fvm, and we can directly see that. And our task is now that we use this Flutter version here as our absolute path in Android Studio. For that, we open up a terminal once more, change our folder inside of the FVM and change it to Flutter SDK. Now if we execute pwd, we will see the full path to that folder. Now that we have the full path to the folder, we go to our settings. You go to Android Studio Preferences. Now on the left sidebar, you search for Flutter. And here you find languages and frameworks. Here it asks you for the Flutter SDK path. You choose now the path inside of your development and FVM tutorial in your project folder. We say now apply. In order to make sure that that Android Studio understands the path, I have to restart Android Studio real quick. Now we can see on the top left side where we can select our device that we have Chrome, web server and macOS, which are currently just available in master. So our IDE understands now that we switched here. So if I do the same one again and call FVM use stable, you will see there is still the 3 devices here. Because unfortunately Android Studio is not fast enough to understand that the FVM has changed. So you have to restart Android Studio in order to make it possible to use the correct version. Alright, so now the 2 devices or 3 devices are gone because we are back again on the stable version. If you find a better solution than restarting the Android Studio here in that case, please let me know in the comments below. And now head over to Visual Studio Code. In Visual Studio Code, it is nearly the same procedure. Open up the settings JSON inside of your project. You can see we are in FVM tutorial and you can see the folder FVM. So now if we press F1, we are searching for settings. And here we have to select the JSON one. Now we have to write dart.Flutter SDK paths. Make sure that you use the S at the end. Now we can specify here the absolute path that we want to use. We have 2 possibilities to do it here. The first one is selecting the FVM Flutter SDK that is installed here in the project folder. For that we just have to say fvm/Flutter_SDK. And if we save now and we search for example for Flutter change SDK, we will see that the Flutter SDK 122 is now automatically used. So we use this SDK at the moment. Alternatively, we could use all the versions that I installed via FVM. For that we need a terminal, and inside of that terminal we want to go to the home directory. Because inside of here we install the FVM. If you are in Windows, you have to execute FVM list, and here you see the version path where you find the version of FVM. I will copy this one and instead replacing this Flutter SDK here. And now, if we now search for Flutter change SDK, we see now that the versions underneath of FVM are part of it. So you can use them directly here from this selection. Amazing! That's it with Visual Studio Code. Alright, fantastic. But I promised you a best practice at the beginning of the video. The idea comes originally from Dominik Rostkowski. He wrote me on Twitter to use another alias inside of our environment, so that instead of calling all the time in our projects FVM Flutter, so like FVM Flutter Doctor, for example. With that alias we could just use fDoctor, for example. fDoctor calls now FVM Flutter Doctor. And how did we do such an alias? On MacBook, we have 2 parts of the terminal. So depending on which terminal you use, you will find it up here. You will use either the ZSHRC or the bash RC that you find here.
If you now open the ZSRC, you will see here that I introduced an alias called f, which then executes FVM Flutter. You can do that also on Windows, and for that I will put you a link down in the video description.
Fantastic, everyone! With that, we have another great addition on our Flutter tool belt that we can use in our next project. If you feel now better prepared for the next real-time project, it would be fantastic to give this video a like. Hit the subscribe button if you are new to this channel and want to see more of our content. And if you would be very fantastic, you would like to share this video with everyone who's interested in Flutter Version Manager. Thank you for watching. Until the next time, see ya everyone.